some noise for
Orange Juice and a Blunt.
Whoreson, the story of a ghetto pimp. "15. I awoke Monday afternoon with a splitting headache. My mouth was dry and my eyes were bloodshot from too much entertaining without sleep. I reached over one of the ladies in my bed and removed the last stick of weed from the night table. Before I could finish smoking the joint, Boots opened the bedroom door and walked in. Her sharp glance briefly lingered on the two sleeping forms I was lying between. "Whoreson," she said, "why don't you get them lazy bitches up and on the track? Shit, they ain't done nothing but pop their fingers and shake their ass since Friday night." Before replying, I sat up in the bed and inhaled deeply on the tiny cocktail between my fingers. "Bitch," I replied coldly, "until you grow a pole, you leave the pimping to me." Boots put her hands on her hips and leaned provocatively towards the bed. "Yes, sir, master, sir," she said sardonically. Amused at her answer, I climbed out of the bed and stretched. Since the miscarriage, Boots had developed into one fine bitch. You couldn't have paid one of my other whores to speak to me in such a flip manner, but Boots knew that she was my main lady, so at times she acted just like a black queen. And to me, that's just what she was. "Since I'm up now, I guess I'll take a hot bath," I said. Boots hurried over to the dresser and took out a large towel. "Whoreson, I went over to the hotel like you said, Daddy, but I couldn't get the top floor like you wanted. It was already rented out, so I rented a suite on the second floor." "How much did that one rent for?" I asked sharply. She hesitated for a moment. $30 a day, Daddy, but I didn't pay but a week's rent on it." She rushed her words out, afraid of my reaction. More from habit than anger, I yelled, "Bitch, dumb bitch, ignorant bitch, did it ever occur to you that I might not want the suite on the second floor?" I walked out, leaving her to stare after me dumbfounded. Pushing the bathroom door open, I stopped at the sight of another one of my whores. "Damn!" I exclaimed irritably. "When you get finished, Jean, run me some bath water." Before slamming the door, I added, "Get some spray, or either burn some goddamn incense in there, and please mix some water with it." The girls in the kitchen burst out laughing. I stared at the women preparing breakfast until silence greeted my smothering glance. Boots came quietly into the room and put on a stack of records. "Any of you bitches got some reefer here? Set it out for Daddy," she ordered. Diane, small, thin, with features that seemed to have been carved from a bronze statue, danced out of the kitchen. She held up 2 joints proudly. "Here, Daddy." Her voice belied her small frame with its deep sensuality. Her large hazel eyes twinkled as she held out the weed. Without commenting, I removed the reefer from her outstretched hand and watched her dance back into the kitchen. If all my girls had the vim that Diane displayed at all times, my pimping would be a relief. Next to Boots, she was the best money-maker in my stable. Jean came out of the bathroom. She was almost as tall as Boots, but that was where the comparison ended. Where Boots was dark, Jean was light, with yellow teeth full of gaps. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have accepted her in my stable, because she was lazy and virulent. At the time she chose me, I was just beginning my stable. She came to me after ripping off 300 from a trick. I finished off the joint I'd started before traipsing off to my waiting bath. The mellow weed plus the hot bath eliminated my slight irritation. Living in a house full of women had its drawbacks, but I found it much more rewarding than living in a house without any women. Slipping deeper into the tub, I splashed water up on my chest and shoulders. With the rental of the suite, I would eliminate the problem of some of the worrisome women in my stable. When I moved out, I reasoned, I wouldn't take but Boots and Diane with me. My meditation came to an abrupt end with the entry of Diane. She closed the bathroom door behind her, and by the time I turned to see who it was, she had slipped out of her duster and leaped into the tub, naked. Now, I have heard many people speak of how wonderful it is to make love in the bathtub, but to me, ain't nothing happening with it. First of all, I don't enjoy a woman bathing with me, and as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to having sex with a person in a tub, I think it's foolish. As small as Diane was, she still hurt my legs when she sat on my lap. I pushed her up, so she turned around and sat down in the bathtub facing me. She was so full of mischief that she made me grin in spite of my attempt to look stern. I put my knee between her legs and began to probe for the right spot. Her lithe and graceful body began to move in a most assertive manner. She looked up at me and groaned enthusiastically, "Oh, Daddy, Daddy, you sure know how to make it good to me." Before the sound of her vibrant voice descended to its normal tones, Boots had shoved open the door and stepped in. She stood in the doorway, glaring, with the reef I'd given her hanging from the side of her mouth. Diane broke the silence. "Oh, you don't own this dick, bitch," she yelled. "So try putting an egg in your shoe and beat it." Boots ignored her and came over and sat on the side of the bathtub. "Little hot cunt heifer," she said, "why don't you get your ass out of there so that Whoreson can enjoy his bath?" The weed had put me in such a mellow mood that I just sat back and enjoyed the byplay. Diane snorted. "Huh, whore, I like your nerve. There you sit on your wide ass smoking my reefer and talking shit." Before Boots could retort, Diane followed up her verbal attack with action. Using the palms of her hands, she began scooting water in Boots' direction. Boots took to her heels, while I tried to save my towel from getting soaked. Cursing, I climbed out of the tub. It would be my luck to get hooked up with a bunch of crazy bitches. Diane jumped out of the tub and snatched the towel from me. Resigned to my fate, I stood docile while she rubbed me down. True to her impetuous nature, as soon as she got below my waist, she began to act up. Using the towel with an imp's delight, she took to her task vigorously. I laughed at her unruly behavior, but before I became too aroused, I decided to put a stop to it. I slapped her wrists, but it didn't do any good. She just got a tighter grip. Trying to pry her hands loose was more difficult than trying to get free from an octopus. "Bitch!" I yelled. "Enough is enough. Turn my Jones loose." Instead of obeying, she dropped to her knees and opened her mouth as though she were going to eat some rare delicacy. I grabbed a handful of her hair and pulled her head back. Only the sudden opening of the door stopped me from slapping her. Boots charged in carrying a bucket of water. Diane uttered a scream and scrambled behind me. I leaped sideways, but I was too slow. Most of the cold water landed on me. I shook like a dog shaking water from his fur. Boots turned and fled, and I leaped towards the doorway in hot pursuit, cursing every step of the way. Shrill, piercing shrieks greeted me as I ran bare-ass into the living room. All of my women were sitting there, eating, and 3 other prostitutes